The football season is finally here. We're racing toward the playoffs in baseball, and basketball is right around the corner. I've got cards from all three of those sports in this week's Top 5. Hey everyone, my name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as T-Pott, and I am really excited this week because it is football season. I am ready for some football, kicking things off on Thursday night when Tampa Bay, the reigning champions, come back, and they're going to look to take care of business against a potentially floundering Dallas Cowboys. Don't tell Dallas fans that. They're always optimistic to start the season. Sunday, I can't wait, 1 p.m., Detroit, hoping for an upset against the San Francisco 49ers, and then I'll pivot over to watch at 4:30 as the Chiefs take on the Cleveland Browns. Go Chiefs. Hey, one thing to mention too, if you're going to be in Vegas next week and you're going to be checking out the Industry Summit, make sure to look for us and say hello. We'll be down there, a whole bunch of our team. We're really looking forward to it. We're going to have a whole bunch of the card manufacturers there, as well as our friends at eBay. And obviously, speaking of eBay, this episode is brought to you by eBay. eBay is here for the card collectors with a trick for every trade, like advanced tools for price checking with Price Guide Beta within the eBay app, and up to 50% faster listing with Image Scan. Learn how collecting just got smarter at ebay.com/trading hub. Okay, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get over into this week's top 5 cards. All right, starting out at card number 5, Cleveland Browns running back Kareem Hunt. Now, Kareem Hunt, he's known for his versatility. He can run hard. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Obviously, he started out his career brilliantly with Kansas City before he got into some trouble. Cleveland picked him up, and it really paid dividends for them last year when he and Chubb were arguably the best 1-2 punch in all of the Professional Football League. Now, Hunt went over 1,100 total yards last year. He's expected to repeat similar performance this year, at least if you talk to the coaching staff, and his cards have actually been going up. Now, what's really interesting is this might be some correlation to fantasy football, right? People seeing fantasy, they're seeing that Hunt could have another good season, and they start picking up and noticing his cards as well. That's not always a smart play. Football players are always a bit of a gamble in the different positions, running back, wide receiver, and Chubb is definitely the featured back in Cleveland. So I'm not totally sure if it would be the best idea to be going into Kareem Hunt cards, but if we take a look at what's been happening over the last 14 days, you can see that his cards are going up, have been going up around 64%, starting out at around $40 up to about $65. Now the population is low on his PSA 10 2017 Prism Silver. So what's really interesting is if you go back to the last 90 days, this card was actually up around $80. So it actually came down, and it's actually down over the last 90 days. Over the last 14, it's been trending back upward and has, kind of leveled off around maybe $60 to $65. So Kareem Hunt's card's definitely going up. It'll be really interesting to see what happens this week against his former team when they play on Thursday Night Football. All right, moving on to number 4, we've got Mike Evans, wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Evans, he's undoubtedly one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL when he's healthy. He struggled a little bit with injuries throughout his career, but when he does play, he's an absolute beast. He's number 7 all time in yards per game amongst all players in history. And obviously with TB12 throwing him the ball, there's little room for doubt that he's going to be getting a steady diet of balls thrown his way again this year. Typically we see chemistry increase year over year with quarterbacks. Last year it obviously worked out extremely well for the Buccaneers, and I would expect that to continue this year. And speaking of diet, apparently Evans has been changing his diet, maybe picking up on some cues from Brady, who we know is super religious about what he puts into his body to stay in fit form. And Evans' card prices have been going up as well over the last 30 days. If we take a look at his 2014 Topps Chrome base card, relatively low population at Pop 32, and this card started out at around $45 back on August 8th. Has been trending upwards with a little bit of volatility, now leveling off around $65. Evans is a guy who obviously should continue to perform this year. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Tampa Bay with Chris Godwin and Gronk and Antonio Brown, but I like the odds of Evans having a really, really strong season, and his card prices are starting to reflect that. All right, moving on to number 3. This one pains me a lot, Sekou Doumbouya. The Sekou era is officially over in Detroit. I own quite a few Sekou Doumbouya cards. I was super excited when they drafted him at number 15 back in 2019. Was looking at that pick going, this could be our Giannis. The Pistons, obviously not a destination market. It's a place that, we really need to build out of the draft. We have to be smart with free agency, and they have not done that for the last decade. So I was super optimistic when they took this young, 18, 19-year-old kid out of France, and he showed a lot of optimism, a lot of flashes of potential, but things just haven't worked out. Since we brought on Coach Casey, he didn't see a lot of play time. They brought in some other young pieces, and it completely flipped that roster. And Doumbouya was actually the most tenured player on that team, believe it or not. So they're rebuilding from the ground up, and apparently they didn't see Sekou in that part of their future. So he's moved on to Brooklyn, and as a result, I guess there's some renewed optimism. His cards have come down significantly over the last year, over the last 2 years since they first hit the market. But over the last 14 days, they've been seeing some steady increases since the news of him moving to Brooklyn. I've got his 2019 Prism PSA 10 green, which is Pop 258. This card was, around $35, $36, came down a little bit, and then since the news of his trade has been trending upward closer to $50 now. I'm not particularly bullish right now on buying Sekou cards, only because I don't think he's gonna see a lot of playtime this year. That Brooklyn team is extremely deep, but this was an absolutely genius move by the Nets. He'll have time to develop. He's gonna be around, obviously, world-class, high caliber players, and he'll get to pair up again with his old buddy Bruce Brown, who Detroit gave away for a bag of peanuts last year. So Sekou Doumbouya is our number 3 card this week. All right, moving on to number 2, Salvador Perez, the Gold Glove catcher for the Kansas City Royals. 5-time Gold Glove winner, 7-time All-Star, World Series champion, World Series MVP, and Perez is having himself a real season. In fact, he suddenly, would be in the MVP conversation if it weren't for Shohei Ohtani absolutely dominating and running away with that in the AL. Perez has kind of come up the rear since the All-Star break, and he now leads Major League Baseball with 103 runs batted in. He's also got 41 home runs, which is a new career high by far for him. And just for reference, 45 home runs in a season for a catcher is the all-time record. So Perez has a great shot at breaking that number this season. Now, to be fair, he has hit a fair number of his home runs from the DH position, but his card prices are starting to go up significantly as people are seeing, hey, Perez is actually probably a good long-term hold too at this value point. And I say that because when this all goes down and is all said and done, he's going to be remembered as one of the all-time great Kansas City Royal players, which, that doesn't say a lot. It's not a huge market team, but he'll be mentioned probably in similar conversation to George Brett and other all-time Royal greats. Perez does not have a lot of graded cards. We see this a lot with guys, who kind of come out of nowhere, who suddenly get attention, and you have to shift back and look at their raw cards. And if we're looking at his 2011 Bowman Draft Chrome card here in raw, this card was going for about $8, $9, $10, back a couple of weeks ago. And again, it's starting to gain some traction. People are starting to notice, and they're paying upwards now of around $25 for this card raw. You always have to be careful with raw cards. They're very condition sensitive. There's definitely a market to invest in raw cards, especially depending on what your budget is, or if you're looking to grade these. This is a great card that would be a candidate to send off, to SGC or CSG for a lower grading price to get it, turned around quickly. And Salvador Perez has had himself an amazing season. We'll see how the rest of his career plays out. Okay, so moving on to our number 1 card this week, Mac Jones. Mac Jones, the era has begun in New England. Patriot fans are, I guess, optimistic. The Cam Newton era and that experiment did not work out particularly well, and that's over now. And the news of Cam Newton departing and bringing in Mac Jones as the announced starter has seen his card prices go up. Now, Jones, he had a phenomenal year last year. Obviously, people talking about that Alabama team potentially being among the greatest teams of all time, the most balanced teams of all time. And Jones was a big part of that. He threw for over 4,500 yards with 41 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. And obviously, that played out well for him going into this draft. Now, when the draft was over, amongst the high-profile quarterbacks, Jones was the one that people were the least high on. You had, obviously, Lawrence, you had Fields, and you had Trey Lance. Jones, questions about his athleticism, about his fitness, but he can throw the football, and that showed a little bit during the preseason. A lot of checkdowns, a lot of smart passes, but that's kind of what that Bill Belichick offense is predicated on. Get rid of the ball quickly, and we saw how effective that could be with Tom Brady. So if we look at Mac Jones' card here, this is a low dollar card. This is really all there is on the market right now. And this is part of what's tricky about prospecting and speculating in football rookies, is that these Prism cards aren't coming out super early, the actual Prism set, not the draft set. And then you're not getting back the graded stuff super early either. So when they're announced as a starter, people are going to gravitate to what's available, and that's what they've done here with the Mac Jones card. This card was, $2 to $4 just a few weeks ago in late August, and has been trending in an upward direction. Now, just a whopping $6, but if you're a volume dealer and you have a lot of these in your bin, dollar bins, maybe this was in the $2 or $3 bin a few weeks ago, you move it up to the $5 bin, but you could be snatching up a handful of these and getting a quick turnaround again on some of these, more cost-effective grading companies right now. That could play out well for you. Obviously, I would recommend actually just wait for other products to come out with the NFL, team logos on them. But we're going to see what Mac Jones does this upcoming weekend, and whether or not the same fans who are cheering him on right now will be as optimistic after his first performance. That's our number 1 card, Mac Jones. All right, that does it for this week's top 5 cards. Again, I am so excited about the football season. There are so many young quarterbacks in the league now. If you go back to the 2017 draft until now, it seems like more than half the league now are these young rising stars, so it's going to be really exciting to see how everything plays out. As always, make sure you are subscribed to our channel, hit that little bell icon, and if you haven't already, go out to the App Store and download either one of our awesome apps. Our Sports Card Investor app, totally free to use. You can track and see which cards are moving and check out all the card rankings. And download our Market Movers app to try it completely free, absolutely free to try. And you can go to marketmoversapp.com to find out more about our Lite and our Pro membership programs. Thanks for tuning in this week, and as always, look forward to talking to you next time.